In the beginning, there were comics, often single-panel images that were satirical or political in nature. Then came newspapers. Into these newspapers came the comics, illustrated stories that became a focal point to lure readers in. Characters like the Yellow Kid, Gasoline Alley, Pogo, and Calvin and Hobbes all made their homes in the newspapers. As technology advanced and other forms of comics gained traction in their own ways, comics began to shrink from the newspaper page. Even though newspapers struggled with the advent of the World Wide Web, the opposite started happening for comics. They began to thrive again. The online comics outlet Webtoon publishes 2,600 exclusive different titles alone, while Tapas claims to host over 62,000 creators. Webcomics cover thousands of different styles, with hundreds of themes and millions of variations in between. So, today, the graphic reader is going to take a look at two different titles from two wildly different perspectives: The Middle Age and Cyanide Happiness. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Once again, my name is Nathan, and this is the Graphic Reader. Thank you so much for coming back, especially those of you who have subscribed. You're my favorite. Today, we're going to look at webcomics. Webcomics are just that, comics on the web. Format dates back to the dark ages of the internet, being before deregulation, when the first real webcomic was a title called Witches and Stitches by Eric Milliken. Milliken posted his comics to the long-defunct online service CompuServe way back in 1985. Other titles followed on different services, eventually spilling out onto the web in general. While I would love to discuss the history of webcomics, that's going to have to wait for another day. I will be providing links to the webcomics discussed today at the end of this episode, so if you want to check them out, you can do so. Now, today, we're going to talk about a couple of webcomics that are currently in production and are both recognized in the industry. First up, we'll deal with something that I'm coming closer to all the time: the Middle Age. The Middle Age is the story of Sir Quimp of Grawlix, who all in the same day lost his job, his sword, and his love. Now, to get everything back, he's on a quest to restore his honor, save his love, and prevent a war between humans and dragons. On the plus side, he's got some friends that he can eventually count on, including a drunken wizard, the Lord of all Ducks, a cursed sword, and Bob. On the negative side, he's got some friends he can eventually count on, including a drunken wizard, the Lord of all Ducks, a cursed sword, and Bob. Quimp will have to rely on all of his skill, cunning, and luck to survive, as well as everyone else if he is ever to succeed successfully, to borrow a phrase from the comic. Steve Conley, who writes, illustrates, colors, and letters the Middle Age, and has accomplished an extremely successful artist who's been making comics for more years than I'm sure he'd like to admit to, starting out with Astounding Space Thrills, a sci-fi romp through absurdity, time, and space. It ran for 500 plus episodes and was lauded as a brilliant independent comics series. Recently, Conley has started going back and refurbishing the artwork. Now, personally, I discovered Steve when he was running a Kickstarter for another series he's been kicking around for a few years, one that I'm still holding out hope will be published before long. That series is another wonderful sci-fi themed comic by the name of Bloop about a green monkey who faces off against a psychotic industrialist. Personally, I think Boom Studios or Oni should take a look at it, but, what do I know? Lastly, The Middle Age is the project that Conley is currently working on, updating once a week. Starting in 2017, it has been nominated for at least 6 industry awards so far. Just looking at the artwork, one can easily see why it's been nominated. However, it's the writing that you really stick around for. Lots of silly asides, dumb puns, which as a dad joke aficionado is always a huge draw, and general goofiness populate the text and imbue an already gripping story with enough brevity to really plaster a big old dopey grin on your face. Combine the writing with an overabundance of geeky nods, visual jokes, and cameos of other comic characters, and you have hours of entertainment on your hands. 2 books have been published so far, Sword Troubles and Better Than Nothing. You can also get up to speed on the series by going to either Go Comics or steveconley.com and reading the entire series there. He also has a Patreon that he is incredibly shy about. So if you want to help him out, there's always that option as well. And I'll post a link at the end of this episode for that as well. Next up, one of the more enduring and successful webcomics that have been around for a while. Cyanide Happiness has been putting out content daily for almost 16 years now. Written by 3 different creators, Cyanide Happiness has long been the purveyor of stuff your parents warned you about. Started in 2005, Cyanide Happiness has tackled such subjects as domestic abuse, drugs, sex, perversion, uncomfortable social situations, and other topics often considered too icky for polite company. The characters are often resilient, reappearing in strip after strip even though they've been blown up, stabbed, run over, beaten, or erased from existence. Now, Cyanide Happiness is a rare breed in the fact that over the years it hasn't lost its edge or ability to offend just about everyone, but it still manages to avoid the usual pitfalls of long-running series. Namely, they tend to stay away from current topical events that lose all relevance within 5 years. They have also branched out into theme weeks, mostly an annual depressing comic week where all the comics for that week are unfunny and at least one character is hit by a vehicle during the week. In addition to being perpetual meme fodder, Cyanide Happiness also have branched out into an animated series, in addition to the animated shorts on the website, that debuted in 2014 and ran for 4 seasons. To date, the comics have been collected into 5 books: Cyanide Happiness, Ice Cream and Sadness, more comics from Cyanide Happiness, the Cyanide Happiness Depressing Comic Book, Punching Zoo, and the 2016 Eisner-nominated Stab Factory. There have also been 2 card games, 2016's Joking Hazard and 2019's Trial by Trolley, and 2 video games, Rapture Rejects and Freakopocalypse, released under the Cyanide Happiness title. Now, I haven't played any of these games, but the card games have garnered high ratings, and the video games are showing a lot of positivity on Steam and stuff. In terms of merchandise, however, Cyanide Happiness is near inescapable. The property has been licensed out for toys, mugs, t-shirts, school supplies, even a beer. So, there are 2 webcomics out of literally thousands that are available online. In later episodes, I'll discuss other titles, but that's all we've got time for today. So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you know someone that might be interested in this video, please share. If you want to be one of the first ones to know when a new video drops, please subscribe. And as always, let me know what you're reading below. Until next time, this is Nathan with The Graphic Reader, reminding you to avoid talking swords and homicidal stick figures.